The Planned Intervention Programme funds community activity to divert young people from antisocial and other negative behaviours, particularly during periods of heightened tension. And earlier today, Chianta Mack from Rocca Inc. Had mentioned the sort of ethos of the work that they were doing in terms of no one young person should be left behind. And that's really a sort of ethos that the Planned Interventions Programme would share, providing alternatives for young people who would be at risk of being left behind or engaging, say, in negative behaviours. In the last 4 years, the Executive Office has provided over £1.4 million in funding to the programme. And this has enabled us to deliver over 350 interventions to over 10,000 young people here. So in terms of the difference that that funding has made, the latest available outcome data shows that 99% of young people who were involved in the programme stated that they had improved their self-confidence, that they developed new skills through participation. And 74%, or nearly 3/4 of participants, indicated that they now felt more favourably about young people from other community backgrounds. That was similar to the sort of outcomes we saw from the Connect programme, an excellent programme that we heard about earlier today. First Minister and Deputy First Minister at the start of the programme gave a wider context to some of the challenges caused by the pandemic. It's brought challenges to our programme as well. We've had to work with our stakeholders to design new ways of engaging with participants and delivering to smaller groups of young people and using technology to communicate remotely while retaining that collective ethos of the programme. But again, I think similar to how other people have mentioned, there has been positives to that use of alternative technology. And again, I think it was mentioned in the Connect programme, a hybrid model going forward may well be the way to go. And Bill Evans, the keynote speaker, he mentioned about intervening with young people, providing alternative activities. Again, that's very similar to what we are trying to do. I think there's a lot to learn from both programmes. So today, I'm privileged to be able to introduce Stephen Hughes, who's the senior youth worker at St. Peter's Immaculata Youth Club in Belfast, and he's here to tell us about the Planned Intervention Programme, some other work that he's been delivering. Stephen's been working with young people at the Youth Club for over 8 years, and he's a tremendous amount of experience in youth work, specifically working with hard-to-reach and at-risk young people. Stephen's also provided valuable input to the Planned Interventions Programme in the strategic context when he was a member of the programme board, which we used to provide a governance structure to the programme. And many of the ideas that Stephen had brought to the board have informed the successful programme that I've been telling you about today. So I'll now hand over to Stephen to give you more details of the project that he delivers.
I really can't tell you about the work unless I give you a wee bit of context to where I work. So I work in Divis in the Lower Falls, a significant interfaith community with a pretty notorious history. And as you can see from some of the photographs, it's where the conflict began in 1968. It's an area that has been plagued by socio-economic, political and sectarian violence for many, many years. Some of the things that people won't know is the high levels of gang-related, both paramilitary and domestic sort of gangs in the community. We're notorious for our car crime. So when you go onto YouTube and type in the words Divis, you'll see thousands and thousands of videos of car crime. If you go into our YouTube channel, you will see no negative stories at all. We don't do negative imagery of our children and young people. What you won't know is that the guy at the bottom, a guy called Father Brendan Smith, who was one of the most notorious clerical paedophiles who damaged over 300 children during his time here. He was one of the paedophile priests in our community. So we're still dealing with the legacy and the trauma associated with that over the years. Today, well, I suppose our motivation is to try and remove the wall that separates ourselves and our colleagues and neighbours from the Shankill. It's one of the reasons why we're still dealing with paramilitary gangs as they breed fear and mistrust between our communities. And you'd seen the most recent violence that we had to deal with here in West Belfast at the Lanark Way interface. And The redcoats have become pretty famous. The redcoats of our youth workers have become pretty famous over that period of conflict, because they were in the middle of it, trying to prevent our young people from harming themselves or harming someone else, and to ensure that the impact on good relations was as minimal as possible. One of the other things that motivates myself and our work is the numbers of young people who are victims of paramilitary style attacks, which is the local policing response to young people who are involved in crime and antisocial behaviour. And it's just an abuse of children and young people. And it's been around for many, many decades now, and we're lobbying to try and get that away.
Divis in West Belfast has suffered far more than its fair share of heartache and hardship throughout its turbulent history. Bombs and bullets once rained here, and their sound was almost as commonplace as birdsong. Throughout the years, headlines have shone their illuminating glares on a community that has endured more violence and pain than most others will or should ever know. It's the only Divis most outsiders know of. The bad, never the good. The misery, never the joy. Generations of hidden communities buried beneath rubble and rhetoric. Things are more peaceful now, but the decades of conflict and instability have sprouted social issues that are not too far removed from those found in most cities. Yet here, in this little corner of Ireland, things are always far more complex. Again, sound bites and headlines point the finger, and the more violently minded amongst us continue to point their guns. The area's lost voices are again being buried behind a deluge of negativity, and while some of the young people in the area continue to fall foul of the law, many call for them to be locked away or punished in a more sinister manner. But one group is taking a stand, and they are determined to give the youth of Divis and its surrounding areas something new, a chance. They are determined to uncover those who live beneath the newsprint, the 50-foot walls and the murals, a community hidden to so many, but one that laughs, loves and cries just like us all. A hidden community full of love, passion and courage, just looking for a voice, looking for a chance. Hidden no more.
It gives you a wee quick idea of what we're dealing with, but the needs of Divis are slightly different. And some of these statistics are quite frightening. We have 5 paramilitary gangs vying for control over these communities. They're involved in coercion, exploitation, CSE, but more importantly, the romanticism and radicalisation of our civil conflict. We are the number one most economic, our health deprived community in Northern Ireland. Crime and ASB is rife, and the statistics go on and on. Our mission statement is just as some of our American colleagues are saying today, taking the young person from where they are. We operate a non-exclusion policy, and everything that we do is about the young person first. We talk about the young person having primacy in everything, and even my staff moan and gurn because ultimately they're second as well in this. Everything's about the young person. The number of values, key, these are values that most youth workers see, but we still operate to the Jedi principles. There's nothing better. We're framed in the Human Rights Commission. But the one that sets us aside from everywhere else is that we do a non-exclusion policy. So no matter what our young people have done or been involved with, whether it's interface violence or sectarian attacks or whatever it is, we see that as a learning opportunity. So we have a non-exclusion policy. And I'm sorry I'm flying through these slides, guys. I realise we're short on time. There is risks that comes with this work. The redcoats that I talked about earlier, who were involved in the Lanark Way riots back in April, received threats because of the work that they were doing. And that this job just comes, but it comes with risk. And often when you're challenging paramilitary organisations and lobbying against them, it's always going to be an issue. and it's one of the issues that we live with day and daily. We have a number of models. I'm going to flick through these. You can come back to me if you want information on them. I work with a number. I was a NAMBIT participant back in 2010 with the US Consulate, and I went out to the United States. I made a number of friendships and colleagues that I'm working with still to this day. I've been working in Boston with Royston at the Boys and Girls Clubs there. I work in Washington, D.C. I work in the Hill District in Pittsburgh. I work with Mentor Newark in New Jersey, and they're all part of our programs here in Divis. Social change model, you all probably know this. We use the Big Mac model, which is an at-risk model by Dr. Larry Bantro. Ira Khalif from Harvard University, we adopted his model, a followership model, which is one that I'm really, really loving because only 5% of young people go on to leadership. 100% of us are involved in followership. It's who we follow, why we follow, what values you associate with that, what the risks and consequences are. We have a de-radicalization model, which is about tackling the romanticism and the old history of the martyrdom of conflict that needs to be challenged. We have a progression pathway from a child comes into the building at 7 years of age through to whatever age they leave at. We have the youth work model, which is framed in EDI, and we have a CR progression model that sets up our contested spaces youth work processes, and this is the process that we use in our work. But we're here to talk about the planned intervention program, and in particular, how this one program has affected change in my community with the young people I work with. Now, as you can see, it's one of 5 programs that we operate through TBUC, all funded through TBUC, Department of Foreign Affairs, Belfast City Council, and CRC. So we have a junior ambassadors program, which is 9 to 12-year-olds. The 13 to 15-year-olds is the ambassadors program. 16 to 18 is the global ambassadors. And then we have a leadership program for 18 plus. All of this incorporated in a global service learning program. So knowing your role within the world. But I do want to talk specifically today about planned intervention. So planned intervention is a summer program that comes along with an amount of money. And the amount of money enables us to work with targeted groups of young people who are sort of 9 plus. So each of these groups, all involved in programs. This is Michael Collins Grave. The Ambassadors for Peace program is 13 to 15-year-olds, and it's partnered with New York Mentoring with Thomas Owens. And again, we do international exchange programs with the United States, and specifically with the United States. The curriculum has been developed around a book called The Black and the Green, and it's all about power, oppression, and discrimination. And I'm sure some of our colleagues will know the relationship between the black, the red, and the green, and the flag, and the relationship with Ireland. The 15 to 18-year-olds is a partnership with Amazaji International in Pittsburgh. And as you can see, 1,100 kids queuing for a barbecue as part of a good relations program in Belfast, a social action program in Belfast City Cemetery. The leadership program is all about growing peace builders for the future. And we use every opportunity that we can to help our young people grow and develop. They own the process, they own the journey. But the planned intervention program is targeted. It's not generic for us. We are very, very specific about who we pick, how we select them, and why we're selecting them. And this year we engaged 50 young people. It was 9 weeks of programming. It was 9 social action projects, 24 educational visits, 18 educational workshops, and 1,319 hours of delivery for the planned intervention funding. It's just a group of young people that were down, I think they were down in some activities in Balnahinch. But you can see the age groups that we're targeting. We're not looking at little ones. We are looking for the ones who are involved in interface violence and bonfire-related radicalization and romanticism, and the crime and exploitation and coercion that happens around bonfires. The outcomes are there for everyone to see, and happy enough to share these. But really, really important is the third from the bottom, which is the reduction in recruitment and radicalization of young people surrounding bonfires. And we wanted to keep our young people occupied, educational and diversionary activities, keeping them away from crime, keeping them away from antisocial behaviour. But more importantly for us, and given that we're strength-based as an organisation, we want those young people to grow and develop. It's not just purely about providing activities as diversionary. We never do that. Everything that we provide is a learning opportunity. So a wee quick case study. And this case study is a very, and I mean very quick case study. Last year in 2020, the bonfire cost the PSNI £1.1 million. There was a significant bit of conflict associated with it, but it cost £1.1 million over 3 days. The clean-up cost for the bonfire, Belfast City Council, £400,000. The justice cost for the 4 people who have been incarcerated so far is in excess of £1.8 million, which gives 1 day last year a cost of £3 million to the Exchequer. Planned intervention this year cost £25,000. The EA contributed £15,000 for a summer scheme, and there was a small amount of money from Belfast City Council from Feet in the Street, about £2,500. The total cost for a bonfire-free year, the first year from 1972 that the Lower Falls has not had a bonfire, was £42,500. Now, the civil servants among you and the statisticians among you can do your figures. This doesn't incorporate the political, social, and economic damages that's done every year by the bonfires, or by the radicalisation of young people, by the recruitment to the gangs, or the crime that's associated with it. It doesn't touch on any of that. So that £3 million could be significantly more. So it is. So it's really important that people understand that a small amount of funding, but very well focused and targeted at the right people, can affect change in communities. And that's what we've seen this year in Divis. I know I'm a wee bit over my time, but I just want to finish off with a quick video. It's about 7 minutes, and it gives you the taste of how we do what we do, and we build in our international partnerships. So here goes.
Amazaji has been inspiring empathy, catalyzing social action, and linking diverse networks since 1994. In that time, we've collaborated with tens of thousands of young people, empowering individuals and communities all over the world, and supporting both travel experiences and development projects. And yet, we have a serious problem. Too often, the experiences we create have benefited the privileged few. Typically, wealthier kids from safe communities whose parents and schools can pay for their experiences abroad. And too often, this is the story of global education. In the United States, the wealthiest 10% of families spend nearly 8 times more per child on out-of-classroom enrichment activities like study abroad than poorer families. This gap is growing worse and worse each year, and study and volunteer abroad are a big part of the problem. Let's be honest. Rich young people travel, learn about the world, build diverse networks, and become more globally competent and employable as a result. Meanwhile, the rest of us are left to just imagine what the world is like and how we might best contribute to it. In 2011, Amazaji created the concept of fair trade learning and dedicated its mission to making sure that we not only created travel and service opportunities for privileged youth, but also for everyone else. While Americans have been slow to close the out-of-classroom education gap, there is at least one place that is trying to invest in global education for all young people: Northern Ireland. Since 2012, Amazaji has been working with communities all over Northern Ireland to ensure that young people, regardless of family income and background, have the opportunity to be transformed by global service learning. Recently, Amazaji partnered with St. Peter's Youth Club in Divis, West Belfast. Divis has a tough reputation and is often known for youth delinquency and street riots. It's a place where one doesn't imagine many globally and civically engaged young people, where one might think of drugs and violence before they think of volunteerism. But what if Divis is so much more than its reputation? What if its young people had the same opportunities to experience the world as rich kids do? This is a tale of 16 Divis youth being disrupted and transformed into their best, thousands of miles away from their home environment, being challenged in a full range of activities, and overcoming the community stereotypes shared by many people in their own country, that their generation is a lost cause.
Our community is beaten down a lot, and it's said that we're no good. However, 16 young people came in this trip, and 16 adults are leading it. It's been a life-changing work, and I'm proud of them.
For over a year, this group of youth engaged in activities preparing for a trip to the United States, then spent 1 week with Amazaji's community partners serving and learning about relevant issues in the U.S. They volunteered with people experiencing homelessness in Washington, D.C., did team building workshops in the mountains of West Virginia, and learned about food insecurity and gentrification in Pittsburgh. The outcomes were incredible.
Experience in the States has been unbelievable.
Amazing. Life-changing.
Life-changing. I learned a lot. I've been impacted by the stories that I was told. So I'm going to take back, not to take anything for granted and be grateful for everything that I have. Well, I've learned so many new skills that I didn't think I had, like leadership skills, communication skills.
I think it's really affected me, knowing that there's people so vulnerable out here, and the population of the people that are vulnerable. And by doing everything you can to help them really makes a difference, and it has changed me, in my opinion.
Such a change of character can be associated with one key element: global service learning.
Travel matters because culture. You experience new culture, you meet new people, and you create friendships.
Travel is amazing. It broadens people's experiences, not the level where they get to see statues and monuments, and because that's all part of it. But seeing people and meeting new people and sharing experiences, sharing knowledge, sharing lives.
Well, yeah, I'm a believer in travel. You need to have something to compare your life against. If you live, I grew up in Ardoyne, and growing up in Ardoyne, I thought everywhere was like Ardoyne. So my upbringing was, the normality for me was death, bombs, destruction, hate, prejudice, all the negativity that dragged Ardoyne into the ground. That was my life experience, and growing up in Ardoyne, that was normal for me. That was my normal. But until I got the opportunity to travel through youth work, only then did I say, hold on, this isn't normal. And then you reassess yourself, reassess your life situation, your lived reality, you reassess your goals in life, and then you create a new journey.
The outcomes from this trip are not unique. Decades of research suggest that global service learning experiences, like those that the young people from Divis engaged in, can improve academic achievement and school attendance, increase voting and volunteering likelihood, improve attitude, self-confidence, empathy, and relationships with adults, increase intercultural competence, and enhance other important social skills.
Maya Angelou told us, you cannot be what you have not seen. The young people I work with in Divis tend not to leave the community, whether socially or economically. And the wall has something to do with that, but it's also to do with social and economic structures of poverty, of toxic trauma, of toxic masculinity, of all of these issues. The small investment from planned intervention gives us the opportunity to change that